Hey everybody, it's Ryan. Welcome back to How Farms Work. We're standing outside at my place today, and I have a huge, and I mean huge, pile of bales sitting behind me. So these are all the bales from the pole shed out here, and Dad's pulling them out with the 330G because we are going to be doing something with them today to get them out of the pole shed, but to keep them out of the rain, snow, sleet, whatever kind of weather we see this winter. So as you can see the bales behind me, these ones have been stored inside, so they are higher quality, except for the one that's torn apart right there. But you can see the bales that have been sitting outside, and look how different they look. You can definitely tell that the ones that have been sitting outside are sun bleached. You can tell that they've started to, well, decompose. And although they are still usable, the cows will definitely get more benefit out of the fresh bales that have been stored inside. So Ben Kraker from KUHN is going to be stopping by today and dropping something off for us to use. So he should be showing up any minute now, and once he shows up, Dad's going to keep hauling bales down, and we're going to help Ben get set up so we can get started with what we're going to do today. Now the bales on this side of the pole shed are Dad's, and we're not going to be pulling out and wrapping these ones today because they don't typically sell well if you wrap bales. Typically they want the wrap removed before you sell them, and wrapping can make a layer of mold form around the outside of the bale while keeping most of the inside intact compared to just leave them sit outside. So all the humidity from the wrap usually collects around the outside, and that's why you get that layer of mold around the outside. So bales that have been wrapped usually don't look too good. So anything that we plan to sell, we're probably just going to leave in the pole shed here until it freezes, and then we can move them outside because they'll have less tendency to decompose once it gets below 32 degrees out and everything freezes. So once it freezes over for good, then we can pull these out whenever we are ready to sell them. It just kind of depends on how we're looking for feed, and then we can sell these. So it would be nice to have the extra space in here, especially in the midwinter when we're running the calves through. So probably around December, if things go true as to how they were last year, we'll pull out a bunch of the bales in the center here and put them outside so that we can run the calves through here and set the round pen and the chute up. Military's deciding to pay us a visit.
Let's see what's happening, probably. Usually put a couple through before you start it wrapping, because you got to have, it's like a square bale here, you got to have something to push against.
Okay.
And usually the first one off will tip over or something, but then you just pick them up and run them back through.
Yep. So this is one of those situations where we're not going to be using the pallet tines, and we're going to be using the bale forks instead, because with the bale forks you can stab the upper part of the bale and drop it onto the wrapper and pull off. Let's fire up the JCB and switch to the bale forks. We're going to start off by doing a run up by the steer lot fence here. Now, if you guys visited the Farm Progress show this year in 2021 and you visited the KUHN booth, you would have seen this wrapper there. It's the exact same wrapper. It came straight from Farm Progress to here. and I think it's going to the World Dairy Expo right after this. So if you're visiting the World Dairy Expo, it's going to be there. All right, now we've got the wrapper in place. What do you want us to know about it?
Yeah, so this is our brand new OWR 6000. It's our first inline wrapper from KUHN. So we've been making individual wrappers for about 35 years. So we're taking some of the stuff we learned there and putting it into an inline version now. So the model name OWR stands for OptiWrap round. Then the 6000 means it'll do up to a 6-foot diameter bale. And that means 6 foot in the middle. So if you have a bale that's 6 foot on the bottom because it got really squatty, it's not going to fit through the hoop so well. That's pretty standard with any inline wrapper, so you want to make sure it's the diameter in the middle of the bale. Okay. Pretty comparable to a lot of other inline wrappers out there. So I've got a nice low loading height, so you want to make sure that your spear in the bale kind of in the top. Bring it in here, set it in the top, and then the plunger here will run through. It's got an automatic cycle feature, so you can basically tell it how long you want it to wait. So if you're an experienced operator really looking at cycle time, you can set a pretty short time, and then as soon as the little photovoltaic or red light sensor here sees the bale, it'll wait that set time, and then it'll start the wrapping cycle. So the plunger will move, and then the hoop will start spinning, and it'll put the wrap on. Everything's controlled through a pretty easy to use screen here, so you can see it's pretty simple to set up. This one, you set how many layers of film you want, so we're going to do 8 layers. Hit OK, put in your bale width, so we're doing 5x6 bales here, so it's 5 feet wide. Then this is the layers over the seam, so you can put an extra couple wraps on at the bale seam, so +1, +2, however many you want. Since the seam where 2 bales meet is generally the place where you'll have the most likelihood that it'll tear, especially if you're doing a little bit of a curve in your tube. You can put some extra layers on there. And then this bottom setting there is to do the loading gap. So there's a little bit of room in there, so when you set the bale down, you don't have to be exactly in the right gap. So that's just telling the wrapper how far it has to move that bale before it's butted up against the bale that's already in the unit. Okay. The other buttons here are obviously stop and start the engine, manually move the plunger, manually rotate the hoop, and then you push this button and it brings up the second screen. So this is where you raise and lower the tail. Right now we've got it up. We'll put a couple bales in there first to get the tube started, so you got something to push against. Okay. Once you get that started, you lower it down.
That's nice.
And this is just to run one cycle for a bale. This puts it in auto mode, so once you get everything set, you just leave it in that. And then, like I said, when you set a bale on, it'll see it with that bale eye sensor and then automatically start the cycle. Or if you just want to hold down this button, it'll manually run through everything. Okay.
Pretty straightforward then. Yep. Not too complicated.
Nope. So the other switches here is this one's got the light kit, so you can turn on the LED lights if you're going in the dark. On and off switch here for the whole system. Then a low and high idle. So when you're just sitting here wrapping, it'll go down to a low idle to save fuel. If you're driving around like we were getting in here, you put it up at high idle, so everything drives a little bit better. Those levers are here, so you got one for steering and one for forward and backward. Okay. And then this last one here sets your compression. So right. I've got the handy loop here, so you can hold your roll of tape if you do get any tears in there. Then I should mention it's a Honda IGX 13 horsepower engine on there. So really efficient engine. It's matched this, so you can run this with either 2 or 4 stretchers with that same 13 horsepower engine. This one also has the optional film sense on there, so it's going to keep track of if those rolls are putting film on. So if one tears or you run out of film, it'll automatically adjust the hoop speed to allow for how many stretchers you have on there. So we have 2 stretchers, we're trying to get 8 layers. One tears or runs out, it'll automatically adjust to maintain that 8 layers with only 1 stretcher running. Then when you get done, we've got the film storage on the side here, so you can tip one of these down. It's really easy, kind of pull a little pin out, and then this just tips down so it's at waist height. You can load that in then and ready to go. So we got 4 film roll storage on this one, 2 here, 2 on the other side.
Okay. We got our 2 rolls already mounted in there, and we should be ready to give it a whirl. Probably not. Friction, plus it's been sitting there for so long. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe. I didn't eat weed this morning.
Okay.
But stick is the only roll as far as we want.
Yeah. Prop a stick up against it. I let it go. That went really fast. Last bale in this row. We've got 28 bales down to the end down there. Time to kick this one off and finish wrapping it. A row of bales is a row of bales, whether it's straight or crooked. what's the optimal pressure, Ben?
So it depends a lot on field conditions. Usually we'll be around 1,000. Going up a hill like this, we only put it on 500. You'll be able to tell by the wheel here, you can see how it's trying to slow everything down. Eventually it just locks up and starts skidding. That means we got too much pressure because it's trying to stop, but there's not enough traction for it too. So
Okay.
depends a lot on how wet it is, if you're going uphill or downhill and all that kind of stuff.
And why do you want compaction?
So that's making sure we're squishing the bales together tightly to force out as much air as we can. Should start beeping at us here. It's not seeing as many stretchers move as we're supposed to. We'll automatically adjust how fast and smooth the plunger move to maintain our 8 layers even though it's only one stretcher.
Okay.
That works either in the 2 or if you have all 4 stretchers on there, it does the same thing. Right with our handy dandy sticker.
Tube number 4, coming right up. Moving.
But these are 70% stretch on our pre-stretchers, so you'll be able to wrap more bales with less film.
70%.
So there's a gear ratio in here, and that's what stretches the film before it goes on the bales. So we're stretching at 70%.
Okay.
Which obviously, the more you stretch it, the farther you go with roll film.
Is 100% ripped?
Probably.
Travis has the remote, so he's steering it. This is the last bale that's going on for today. There we go. You can go ahead and shut it down in place. And that's a wrap for today, folks. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of hay, and we've got a 5th one started down there. We left the wrapper where it's sat because we are going to be making the rest of this hay out here when it's done drying and we can get it baled, which is going to be very soon. So keep an eye out for that video. Some of you might be wondering why we wrapped some of the cruddier looking stuff, and the reason being is because, well, we have the wrapper, so even though I had to let second cut sit outside, and third cut actually, I still wanted to get it wrapped as soon as possible when I made it. Wrapping it was my intention, but I had to leave it sit outside because our inside storage was full. So all of my first crop was stored inside, and that stuff for the most part is pretty good. After we pulled it out, we realized that it did heat a little bit. If you notice on some of the bales, they have brown spots on the inside, and if we had wrapped it right away, that would have kept that hay a little bit higher quality, I think, anyway. So anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. I'll be sure to use the wrapper in an upcoming video when we're making the hay out here, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I want to give KUHN a thank you for sending this wrapper down, because it is a huge benefit to have a wrapper on the farm to keep our hay more preserved and to keep it from deteriorating, and especially since this crop out here, I don't know if you guys can tell it, but there is a lot of smoke in the atmosphere, and the sun just doesn't have the intensity. There's no wind, and the hay just isn't drying, especially it being this time in September. And they are calling for rain in the next coming days here, so having this wrapper here is going to be nice, because we're probably going to bale it at pretty higher moisture compared to what we're used to. So anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all of our other videos. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat, all how farms work. And with that, I'll see you next time. I want one.